to this computer. All right. So especially for our newer folks, I shared this last spring at the meeting, but just to kind of give you a vision of where we've been for CESA 9 for YA, when back in 13-14, we had 19 completers. And last year we had 83, or 2 years ago, 1920. And in COVID last year, we had, I think, 102. So yeah, so it's phenomenal, the growth that CESA 9 has seen in YA, and of course that is largely due to the coordination that Marla did all those years. She's fantastic. We've always had a really good, pretty good mix of males and females. It's really pretty even. In fact, really since like 15, 16, we've had more girls in than guys, but we've got usually about 53% of females in YA. We have been, again, pretty good with our minority population. So our average is like 5.3% of our students. And I consider that in, the Northwoods of Wisconsin, where we don't have a lot of diversity. I think that's good. One thing, and I have noticed a few applications coming in where nothing is like, you just leave it blank. If a student has an IEP or is considered at risk, please check that out with your students. And if they are, please indicate on their form. Nobody sees it but us and the DWD, but that is definitely something that they keep track of as far as having an impact on our funding. So the more that we can reach out to special populations, which include minority students, females, especially if they are in non-traditional occupations, and our students with disabilities, that helps us out. The lion's share of our students have been in hospitality, lodging, and tourism and marketing. So we've got a lot of our students, again, looking at the businesses up here that are working at bars and restaurants, or working at Walmart, or some of the little stores that we have on Main Street. So that's traditionally been where a lot of our students have been placed. Last year, it's 107. We had enrolled last year, so we're hoping to have as many of those complete as possible. We were expecting 94 of those to be completers, but I know we've had some cancellations come in, and there is a form that you have to do if a student drops out of the program that we have to submit to the DWD. Oh, this is you asked for one of those to get the slides moving. Oh, no, I wanted to have the Zoom going on both of them, but Zoom, it says it has not been downloaded to this computer. So,
okay.
But that's okay. I've got it on here and I'm just going back and forth. Okay.
All right.
So we had 107 that did enroll, and we were expecting 94. We know we're going to have a few less, but that's another thing that gets reported to the DWD and has an impact on our funding. So we always want to try to get as many students to complete as possible if we know there's an issue. That's why it's really, really important to have contact with your employers as much as possible. The requirement is 3 times during the year you have to have some kind of meeting, whether it's a Zoom meeting or an in-person or over the phone, but it needs to be with the employer and the student. So to try to mitigate any issues as fast as you can to keep those students in those positions, because that does impact our funding. So we have 92 active employers in our districts. And, when you look at, that's based on the wages that students signed up for and the 450 hours, I mean, almost $500,000 worth of wages that our students have gotten in the last year. That's amazing. So last year's students looks very similar as far as hospitality and tourism and marketing. Those are our 2 biggest. We do also have a pretty good chunk of students in transportation, distribution, and logistics last year. So that's really nice. And again, you can see the breakdown in each of the different career clusters as far as the number of female students and the number of minority students. So that gives you an idea. We can get some nice reports from the DWD on that. Reminder of where you can find information. We really have 3 different spots where you can find information. So our website, the CESA 9 website, is kind of the first stop if you want information on YA. that's got just some very basic information on the YA grant and a description of YA. Probably those resources on the side need to be updated. I need to take a look at those. But then at the bottom, we've got a list of all of our districts, and that's one of the things we'll do today is make sure that we are updated on who is in charge of what. And then we also have a live binder, and we've got a website. So we'll take a look at those as well. I can go back to our slides. So the website is kind of a great spot to send students who are interested in YA and employers who haven't been involved in YA before. We've got some nice resources for them, for the students. It kind of gives them an idea of what they're going to be required to do. This is really difficult to do this in two different spots. So it, tells them how many hours they need to have and what their parents are responsible for, which is always important. And then the application forms are right on there, although I did figure out that I need to update I think it's the application form, because one of the drop downs is the year and it wouldn't drop down to the correct year. So I need to update that. But the ETA is in here and that hasn't changed. And then there is a transportation form that we ask parents to fill out, along with a form that says if we take any pictures when we go to visit, that we're allowed to do that. And then for the employers, again, kind of a nice one-stop shop for our employers, so they know what their role is as employers, what they are going to be doing as far as selecting students. And a lot of times, these are students who have gone out and found the positions themselves, and then they sign up for YA. I don't know if many of you have, do any of you have like employers that call you and say, hey, we've got a position, can you find a kid? So there is some of that as well. Yeah. Some workers' compensation, that they're just covered the same as any other employee would be, but they can't, of course, go on unemployment. The ETA, student learner laws, and we'll take a look at where the updated ones are located now on the new checklist. But because they're student learners, not just youth employees, there are some things that they're allowed to do that other youth would not be allowed to do. And then talks a little bit about the workplace mentor, because each kid does need to have a mentor that's in charge of them. Then that's the one that's going to be grading the students on those checklists. And then there's a link to the checklist, and there is a mentor training video. We do assure the DWD every year that any especially new employers that we're working with have to be trained. So unless you have some kind of a training that you have for those employers, please send them to the website to watch the video, because that will give them information about YA. And next year, it's going to be really, really important to make sure that all of your employers, old and new, are up to date on the new forms, because they're going to look different, and there are different things that they're going to have to sign off on. So that's going to be really significant. And then last is the live binder, and that's something that, again, I will check into that and make sure that that is updated, but that's always kind of been the spot to find all of the updated forms. So as we are getting those new checklists and things, we'll make sure that those are in the live binder. They were updated, and then the DWD issued some new ones this summer. So any questions on any of the websites or where to find information? Okay. The DWD actually has created some new resources last spring. So there are some really nice, and actually, if you were not here live, and I think Allison, you were the only one here that was here live last spring. If you want a paper copy of those, I have them in my car. I was going to drop them off with the boxes, and then I completely forgot about them, but they are, hello.
Sorry.
Oh, not a problem.
Shortage, so.
Not the only ones. Okay, and of course, between the spring and now, they have changed the location of the link. So I will have to figure out what the new link is, but they've got some really nice new flyers. I just used this link last week. Anyway, I will make sure that the new link is on here, but if you would like paper copies and you're here physically, I will make sure and run out to the car and grab those and bring them in. There's a flyer for every different career cluster, and then a student flyer and an employer flyer. Alrighty. And since you just came in and we went around and did introductions already, that's okay.
My name is Jamie Miller. I'm from Readiness High School, and so I help Stephanie, but right now I'm speaking on for Stephanie her time. You know, she had a little baby boy on Friday.
On Friday.
So that's a little 8 pounds now.
Oh yeah, just little.
You saw her last
Yes, I did see her last week.
You know, she didn't look that big. So.
No, I would not have guessed 8 pounds, 9 ounces. Yeah, she was just here last Wednesday, a week ago. Yep. And she's like, nope, I have the baby Friday, and there you go.
Yeah.
So I am going to do an overview kind of on career readiness, going down to the pathways. There's a reason for this, and then getting to YA, and it's because of the connection that Pathways now has with YA. So we've been here talking about ACP for 7 years now. It's been 7 years since ACP first started. It was in pilot for 2 years, and now it's been like PI 26 has been the law for the last 5 years. The DWD or the DPI is switching their verbiage a little bit. You're going to hear a lot more about career readiness because they see that as the overarching goal for everything. And then ACP is the process we use to get there. Pathways, which I'm going to do a brief overview of, and there's a reason for it, is the organizing structure of our academic and career planning process. And then CABLES, career-based learning experiences and industry-recognized credentials. That's what CABLES and IRCs are. That's YA. And that's those activities where the employer gets to directly have contact with the student. And then, of course, we've got the Zello tool that we can use with students, hopefully are using with students at the district level as we're doing academic and career planning. So our overarching goal for career readiness is every child to graduate college and career ready. And then we know, of course, that ACP is the process that we use to get those students college and career ready. And that goes through the 4 stages of know, explore, plan, go. And there's, you know, if you're the ACP, if you have any thing to do with ACP in your district, which hopefully you do, yeah, there are lots and lots of resources for you to do that, academic and career planning with your kids. When we look at, like, this is really ACP on one page, which I love this organization. But you can see that there are a lot of moving parts to academic and career planning. So when we look specifically at how YA works into this, it is absolutely one of the tools we use for academic and career planning, and it has direct connections to the career readiness components of work-based learning, because that's what it is. It's the Cadillac version of that, and industry recognized certifications, which many of our students are getting while they're out doing YA. So the Pathways work is kind of our organizing structure for this. Last year, it blew out across the entire state. Previous to that, it was done in pilot phase in 4 small regions of the state. But last year, we started creating career pathways across the entire state. So our region is called the North Central Wisconsin Career Pathways region. And it includes 2 what we call regional economic development organizations. Region 5 is Grow North. So you may be familiar with Brittany Beyer or Michael Tauchis. They work for Grow North, and we work closely with them when we are talking about all these connections between employers and students. It's across 10 counties. There are 37 school districts, including all of the districts of CESA 9. Along with CESA 9, we also have 5 districts like Jess's from CESA 8, and Jason's, actually both of them are CESA 8. And then I think 10 districts from CESA 5 are part of the North Central region. And then we have all of our higher ed partners, and that includes NTC and WTC, Midstate, Nicolet, UW-Stevens Point. And when we did some work with the patient care pathway last year, we also got information from the Medical College of Wisconsin. So when we create, and I'm going to show you what these look like if you haven't seen them already, these regional career pathways. I know Jamie's seen them because we looked at these at our Carl Perkins meeting last week. We start with what the state creates for templates. And so we can't do work in a pathway until the state takes it on. So far, the state has created pathways in patient care, construction, advanced manufacturing, digital technology, the 3 areas of business administration, which include management, finance, and marketing, and STEM specifically on energy. And they are working on pathways in education because just like every other employer, we are in desperate need of teachers, agriculture, and 2 other areas of STEM, just general STEM, and then biomedical. So once the state has created a template, then we can take a look at those for our region, and we gather a ton of labor market information for North Central Wisconsin. We look at what you're offering in your districts for programming for students, and then we choose what makes the most sense as far as, what industries are going to have openings that are high need, high wage for students, that there's really a need. So last year, our 2 biggest needs were patient care and advanced manufacturing in this area. Those are 2 industries that are just begging for employees. So we created career pathways in those 2 areas. This year, we again sat down with Brian Kalish and Mitch Rupp, who are with Workforce Development, and they get all of this really beautiful labor market information together for us. And it made the most sense for this year for us to start building pathways in architecture and construction and digital technology. So those are the 2 new ones that we will be creating. So a regional career pathway as opposed to a local pathway has all of the components that a district needs to offer. And there are 5 of them, which are on the next slide. But the really nice thing about the regional career pathways that a local pathway that a district creates doesn't have is really this page. And it's that it gives students a career ladder that they can follow after they graduate, that shows them here are the careers in this particular pathway and what I can expect for a salary at each of these different levels. And then if I'm really interested, eventually in becoming a nurse practitioner, here's how I would move up that career ladder to finally get to nurse practitioner. And then at the bottom of each of these categories, with the click of a button, students will be able to get into a document that shows them all of the post-secondary programming specific to that lane for patient care. So they will see all of the nursing programs, for example, amongst all of our higher ed partners. The district then has the opportunity to create a page that is all about the components that are offered at the high school. And that includes a sequence of at least 2 classes, dual enrollment opportunity, industry recognized credentials, any kind of career-based learning experience that is at least 90 hours. And of course, we need to know that YA is the Cadillac version of that at 450 hours, and then a career and technical student organization. And districts need to have at least 3 of those components in place in order to be offering a pathway at all, whether it's a regional career pathway or a local pathway. If districts specifically, again, within the 2 areas that we created pathways this year in manufacturing and patient care, are interested in creating those pathways as regional career pathways, they then fill in all their information in the form and submit it to me as the grant coordinator. And then once they're approved, they go up onto the website. So you can see a couple of our districts here already. I'll just go into Northland Pines since they're here. So the district page has all of the information from Tim on here are the classes we offer in manufacturing. Here's some other good classes you could take that kind of go along with it as well. Here's our career and technical student organization. Our work-based learning is both youth apprenticeship and employability skills certificate. We offer 1 industry recognized credential with OSHA 10, and we have a transcripted class in metal manufacturing. So students can easily see then as they're coming into high school, if they're interested in going into manufacturing, they know just what to take and what to get involved in while they're in high school. And then, like I said, they get this additional really wonderful career ladder that shows them, exactly, and it doesn't show every single occupation, obviously, because that would be overwhelming, but it gives them a really good idea of occupations, especially that are specific to North Central Wisconsin. And then the salary range for those different occupations. And then again, the post-secondary options for those. So you'll see some career titles on here that you won't find in any other region's maps, like forest products buyer here under supply chain. We know forestry is huge in North Central Wisconsin, not in other areas of the state. So we actually sit down with manufacturers in North Central Wisconsin. We say, tell us the most important careers you want on this page. And that's what we go with. So this is very much regionalized by your employers here in North Central Wisconsin. And we actually did just have the Carl Perkins meeting to get more districts on board with this and more pathway maps created. So that's my job next month, is to take a look at all the maps that were submitted last month and start getting those approved. So the pathways kind of 3-year goals starting last year was really all about creating infrastructure. This year is about getting that information on the pathways out to students and parents. And then year 3 is really going to look at access and equity and making sure that we have the career pathways accessible to all of our special populations. So for high school students who participate in the career pathways, we see that they are more likely to graduate on time, pursue post-secondary credentials, complete their post-secondary education in fewer years because they get started on it while they're in high school. They owe less in student loans because in many instances, they take those classes while they're in high school or their employers pick them up, the cost of that. They gain access to valuable network of job contacts because many of the kids are out doing things like youth apprenticeship, and they gain important workplace readiness skills. For our employers, it helps them to close the skills gap by exposing students to those high demand careers earlier and accelerating them through the talent pipeline faster because they've already started working in the jobs while they're in high school. It allows employers to support educational programming to ensure current and relevant learning, and it's a more efficient way to establish and sustain education business partnerships. So really it lets employers have contact with those kids while they're still in high school and making those really important career decisions. So one of the goals that I have that's connected to YA with Pathways is to really think about how we can get more students into those areas that we know are high need, high wage. So yep, it's really, we know that hospitality needs employees. We know that marketing needs employees, but are those really the jobs that students are going to continue to have after they graduate? Or are there opportunities, and it's not always going to be the case, but are there opportunities where we might have students that can get into manufacturing, get into patient care, get into architecture and construction, or digital technology while they're still in high school? So that's really my goal, is to help to make more connections between YA and the pathways we're creating. So there's a reason for this. I'm going to make a direct connection to YA, but any questions about pathways before I move on? Okay. All right. So all the updates to YA, and there are a lot. They are doing what's called modernization. So that is all the new checklists that are coming out. They are 2/3 done. So they will be finishing the last third this year. And the whole idea is to make sure that the YA program competencies that we're scoring students on really meet Wisconsin industry needs and aligned with what our employers are looking for. They want to maximize dual credit as much as possible, increase the number of industry recognized certifications that students get as much as possible, expand into emerging occupations. So we'll see some brand new checklists that are coming out in areas where we have not had YA before. They are huge on pushing alignment from youth apprenticeship to registered apprenticeship. And in fact, we just found out yesterday when Jean started uploading all of the forms you guys have been sending, that there's a new question on the application form on the DWD website that we have to answer. And it is this student pursuing a YA to RA bridge? Like, we don't even ask kids that because they wouldn't know that when they're signing up for a job. So we just put no for now on everything. But if there are opportunities that your students, as they are finishing their youth apprenticeship, their senior year, and that's an employer that is open to registered apprenticeships or even has them already, that's absolutely something we want to make sure we check on their final paperwork, because that's a plus to us for the DWD, is that we have students that are bridging from YA to RA. So when they take a checklist and they start modernizing, they actually contact industry advisors to come in and take a look at those. They make sure that they are looking at what the registered, if there is a registered apprenticeship in that area, that the checklist for YA mirror the checklist for RA. They leverage existing high school experiences if at all possible, and then communicate the next steps to us, and we then communicate that to you. So every career now, or every YA pathway now has 3 documents basically. There's a pathway overview, there's an online job learning guide, or an on the job learning guide, there we go, specific to every single pathway. So you're no longer going to have like that first page that you have to check, oh, they're following this pathway or that pathway. Every pathway has their own OJL. And then there is a related instruction guide. So the DWD is being very specific about starting with the courses your students need to take along with YA, starting with dual credit first. If there's a dual credit opportunity, either at your school or at a local technical college that they can get involved with, in the DWD's eyes, that's always the first thing that they want to push with kids. If that's not possible, then you look at what's available at your high school. Again, that's the DWD's take. We know that we have a lot of small districts in up here in northern Wisconsin, and you don't have the same kind of coursework that's available at a Madison or Milwaukee. We get, and Tim's laughing back there, we get very creative when we look at the types of classes your students can take that go along with the YA experience that we're doing. Previous to this, we did not need to record what those classes were, so we could get really super creative. Starting with the new checklist, and some of those students are going to have to start this year with the new checklist. It now has to be reported to the DWD. So that may mean that we need to be a little less creative with the coursework that we've been accepting. We'll have to see. I don't know how much of YA police they're going to be. Sometimes we just try things and wait to get in trouble. But
does it kind of seem like the way that some of this is going, that up here especially, it could reduce some of the kids that are able to do YA?
that's a possibility. I mean, when you look at, not every job can be a youth apprenticeship job. And so
I've run into quite a few up by us that there's
Mhm.
that.
right. Yeah.
They've
If
taken away things like resort management.
yes.
And
Yeah, we talked about that, like maintenance and grounds,
Right.
which, yeah. Yeah. And the only way that, like, we have quarterly meetings with the DWD, all of the regional YA coordinators, and we put stuff out there to them. And I think that if they hear directly from the field, it perhaps holds more weight with them than when we are telling them. So, you know, if that's something that it's like, hey, you know, this is an occupation that there is a big need in North Central Wisconsin. We've got kids that could do this, but you've taken this away. We want you to look at it again. Reach out to the DWD and send them that information.
Well, it almost seems like they could have a YA template for those jobs that don't fit in one specific pathway, that we could still have requirements and stuff for. And I've got a girl that's working in a lab for Pitlick and Wick,
Mhm.
and she tests rocks for like all of their underlayment or their road bed and stuff, and she wants to do a YA, and I'm like,
Would that, could
wonder what that would be.
STEM?
STEM, it seems like, is mostly just more engineering and drafting and stuff.
Okay.
You know, they have that
Mhm.
first required
Yeah.
drafting one that has nothing to do with what she does.
Yep.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but there's just, it seems like there should be kind of a catch-all for those genuine experiences
Mhm.
that are great
Yeah.
opportunities.
And
That's where-
that's not to say that you couldn't create a local one. And as long as it's at least 90 hours, it counts for Carl Perkins. They don't get the YA certificate, but at least the kid would still have that opportunity. I hear what you're saying and think that would be an awesome idea. The DWD would never go for that because they wouldn't have control over it. So, yeah.
Would you be able to like report back to them and ask them about, like the courses having to be in the same year, like with our smaller districts, and like you were saying, they've already taken them? Would they still have the option that like, as long as they take them in high school or only like junior, senior year?
No, and I will tell you why I know that, because we have been, with the new checklists, the students need to, one of the things under career preparation, which we'll look at in a second, is that they have an industry recognized, or they work on an industry recognized certification while they're in YA. And a lot of these kids, like if it's an OSHA, kids have done that junior year already. You're not going to have them redo it. They're OSHA certified. They don't need to redo it. Nobody needs to redo it after they get certified. And we have gone around and around with the DWD about, can it be certifications that they either have or are working on? And they're like, nope, has to be something they're working on. Can't be something they already have. It's like, oh my
And
gosh.
it's so ridiculous because you're
I
asking
know.
kids to put stuff off until
Yeah.
their senior year.
I know.
Most of ours are seniors, so they're,
Mhm.
how do you put everything off till your senior year?
I know.
And then still have 3 hours or 4 hours a day of work?
Yeah.
Usually our working
I
kids
get
are
it.
like, their sophomore and junior year is like the ones where they have all their classes and they say the senior year is their easy year.
Mhm.
For us, like, for
Yep.
them to have YA 7th hour so that they're able to go to work even earlier. So they want to get those courses done prior to senior year.
Yep.
And then, I don't want to tell them, I don't want to give them a disadvantage of,
Mhm.
they're
Oh,
doing.
yep,
what's good
I
for them,
absolutely
it's probably
agree.
the opposite.
We'll keep asking,
Yeah.
but it seems like they are, like Tim said, they're getting more restrictive rather than less. Because it's like they have really had a lot of turnover at the DWD. So all new folks, and then you get new rules. With the new checklist, and I will get into one of the checklists, but the competencies, which there's all the employability skills, those are the same, but then the competencies that are specific to that particular pathway, they do have one little piece of flexibility in that previously you could not put NA for anything. Or the checklist would get failed and your student would not get YA. They do now have, like, if there are 7 competencies, you can say, well, there are 6 of them that absolutely the student has done all of these things, but the student is never going to create a layout. They can put, an employer can put NA for one of the required competencies, but then there's a spot on the form that they have to create. Then they have to come up with a different competency, like Tim was saying. So, yep, they're not ever going to do this thing, but they are going to do this competency instead. And there's a spot for them to write down what that is and then to score a student on it. So they have that much flexibility. There is now a career preparation section, and I will call up one form and go through the whole thing, but the career preparation section now counts. So if you're using the new checklist, and we are going to be for some areas this year already, but next year for most of the areas, we have to use the new checklist. So students have to be doing one of these 3 things, and it's while they are doing their youth apprenticeship, not before. So they either need to be enrolled in a pathway. So I just showed you what the pathway was, and that's why. So if you have a student that has indicated, I'm doing this job because this is what I want to do post high school, and your district has that pathway that has been approved by your district, then you can check that. Yep, the student has told me they're interested in manufacturing. They're working at a manufacturer. They're following the competencies here at our school district for pursuing a career in manufacturing. So I'm going to check the first one. The Pathways project does not have anything that I have ever seen, and I've been in this since the beginning, that says students need to sign here to enroll in a pathway. So I don't know what the DWG is actually asking about a student being enrolled They don't enroll. They just are they're just working the pathway. So I really need to find out what the heck they're talking about, but that's in essence what they're saying. Just say, yes, they're enrolled and, okay, I won't ask.
Student can be marked as like a concentrator.
I think probably, yeah. Or they've completed one of the following certificates. A copy of the certificate must be uploaded with the completed checklist. Select the certificate from the list below. And this is where they're telling us this is something the student has to do during youth apprenticeship, not before. So like OSHA 10, well, if it's a senior and they're in manufacturing, they had to have done, is an OSHA requirement for that, or is it just for construction? Maybe just for construction. But if they're a senior, they had to do it the year before that because that was a requirement. So yeah, we're still going around about that. But that's a second thing that you can check off. Or the third is that the student has one dual enrollment class that they're taking this year while they're in YA. And you do have to list the name of the college, the course title, and the course number.
What if that dual enrollment class has nothing to do with that pathway?
It has to.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it is an NTC communications class, we could accept that because pretty much all of the technical college program or all of the associate degrees require that. So we could count that. But if they're taking something that really has absolutely nothing to do with.
Hospitality students are in like welding and getting dual credits technically.
Yeah. No. Right.
What happened to the CTSO?
They dropped it. Yep.
Oh yeah, what the heck?
Yep. They
But not on all of them, right?
what?
They dropped it on all.
They
of
dropped it on all of them. Mhm.
What did they drop?
The last year when they were first doing these new checklists, a fourth thing for career preparation was that the student was involved in a career and technical student organization like Skills USA, and they have cut that out. I don't know why, but it disappeared.
And that's one that actually a lot of us have.
But if you've got students that have been taking the classes and are in the CTSO, then they're enrolled in the pathway, Tim.
Yeah, there you go.
But they still have the CTSO as part of one of the 5 things.
In the pathway, exactly. So that's why I'm saying if they're in the CTSO and they're taking those classes, you can say, yeah, they're enrolled in the pathway.
Right. It's still probably requirement for conference.
Yeah. And then there is a related instruction guide. And again, I'll look through this with one whole one so you can see the whole checklist, but it does suggest classes that the student could take. And it, like I said before, it's always going to start with dual credit. And then from there, it'll give ideas for other classes, but they're really pushing dual enrollment as much as possible.
That's not for your post-process.
Yep.
A lot of schools with those.
There we go. Something that I had the opportunity to sit down with Jess at Crandon and then Tim at Northern Pines and Ryan and Three Lakes was to create kind of a spreadsheet of courses so that when students start signing up for the different areas, you have an idea anyway of the courses that would work for this kid. So we literally took like the whole student handbook and just sat down one section at a time and went, okay, if a student is interested in ag, but we don't even offer any ag classes, what are some classes that could work if a student has a youth apprenticeship in any of the ag areas? So we just put all of the youth apprenticeship pathways on the bottom and then listed both year-long courses and semester courses and then possible courses through whatever institution you go with for your technical college classes and then possible industry recognized credentials. So I did include a template and I'll send a link to the slide deck to all of you so you'll have all of this live linked. But I did create a blank template with all of the YA pathways live linked, so you can create this with your course handbook. So it's just nice to have it laid out ahead of time, so that way if a kid signs up next year, you can go to the chart and say, oh well, let's start with these, and then if you've taken all those, we'll just have to see. But at least it gives you a starting place. So hopefully that is beneficial. When I sat down with Brian, he thought it was a great idea. Hopefully, Jesse, that you have found that is something that you're going to be using that we created. So I did put it in there if any of the rest of you want to create that for your district. Let's see. There we go. So the tier 2 is what just got completed and rolled out. So tier 2 for this year, the new checklists are in ag, food, and natural resources, arts, AV, and technology, construction, manufacturing. They added one, and they are going to be investigating some new ones. One is broadcast engineering technician. That would be under IT, I think. Agribusiness for the ag area, forestry for the ag area, and utilities and meter technician. I think that also goes under natural resources. So they're not guaranteeing that they're going to be creating those, but those are areas that they're seeing more of a need for, that they are investigating. So we're going to look at all the new stuff for each area. So one of the things that they looked at is what are existing registered apprenticeships that we could create something similar in youth apprenticeships. So that's where you see like arborist is brand new, because that's a registered apprenticeship you can go into. If you've got students that are in crops, they could go into a registered apprenticeship for organic vegetable farm management. Dairy grazer is a new one that they added because of registered apprenticeship. Environmental systems and water resources has a connection to wastewater treatment plant operator. They added heavy equipment operator and operating engineer because there is a registered apprenticeship for that. And then there are tons of registered apprenticeships in the construction field. So that, like I said, is a big push from YA. They also updated all of the safety considerations for each of the areas. So I'll show you where to find that information in the checklist.
Just
Yep.
a quick question, and maybe you guys can help me out, because it's a kind of a movie. So on something like the heavy equipment operator, I mean, are you waiting until your students are 18? Because a lot of those companies won't put everybody on something like that.
There's a nice document that you can give your employers that says what they can do as being a YA versus what just a normal kid can't do.
Yep.
Right.
And there is a slide on that. So
Okay.
it's coming up.
Sorry.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
So
There are some of our businesses that, like some of our manufacturers and some of our construction places that period won't hire a kid
Right.
unless they're 18.
Right.
So, yeah. But you're right, just sharing that safety document with them, sometimes it's like, oh, they can do more than I thought that they could. So for
Some
egg,
employers still just want to
Yeah.
take the risk in their eyes, even though they
Yep.
have the permission to do the
Yeah. a lot of them will say, oh, our insurance won't cover them,
Right.
which is baloney. We've talked to insurance companies who've said an employee will cover anybody. But it's an easy excuse for businesses to use. Under ag, food, and natural resources, arborist is a brand new one, and so is dairy grazer. So that could be like if they've got a goat or sheep herd, that goes under dairy grazer. With arborist, it's actually a 2-year. So for any of the other plant ones, crops, landscaping, or greenhouse, the students first have to take plant fundamentals, and then they would get into one of those their senior year. Arborist is a 2-year one. So they don't need to take plant fundamentals. Fun question. Arborists use ladders, true or false?
I would think.
You would think true. I would think true. It's not. They use rigging, which is why it was easier for them to be able to approve kids for arborist, because you're all harnessed in. So you're not going to go anywhere if you're in rigging, whereas if you're on a ladder, you could always fall. So it actually made it easier for them to create a YA around it.
You're saying they can't do it as a one or 2 year.
Yeah, so arborists can be 1 year, but they don't have to take that plant fundamentals. They can get into it for 1 year, or they can do it across 2 years. And it does bridge to arborist registered apprenticeship if they're interested. YAs cannot start or use chainsaws or chippers, but they could do any kind of, manual cutting. They can ascend and descend trees using the rigging, and their first year includes getting into the tree to get students interested. So they don't, have students stay on the ground because it's safe. They get them in the tree. So, they have skills like maintaining and using personal protective equipment as number one, because that's always going to be the first thing really for any job, but especially for something where they're going to be off the ground. And then, like conducting a tree inspection and establishing a safety zone. And but they actually get up into the tree, maneuver through the canopy. So arborist has related instruction with some of our technical colleges and horticulture and plant science and landscaping. Certifications that can be used for arborists are first aid and CPR, OSHA 10, and tree care apprentice. And then our regular pathways, they start with the plant fundamentals, but they can bridge into organic vegetable farm manager, which is an 18-month RA. So they take plant fundamentals their first year, and then they have their choice the second year of either landscaping, floral, greenhouse, or crops. For the animal pathway under ag, the first year, very similar. They take ag fundamentals, animal fundamentals, and then they have their choice after that of either animal herd, which used to be called large animal, but now it's animal/herd, or small animal vet tech, and then the new dairy grazer.
And
And
our school doesn't have any ag classes.
yep.
So then we just can't even, what do you do for related coursework?
Well, that was something that when we sat down and looked at it for Northland Pines, because you guys don't either, they have a student to work foundation. Is that what it stands for? School to work. There we go. Foundations class, that could be used for anything. But also when you start looking at some of the plant things, you might have some of your science classes that would align to that. So they've got like ecology and environmental impact. Which- Yeah, so that could work for the
What about,
plants.
like, our students who are in YA, they're also like, in the YA class, and each quarter, like, I give those assignments and they have stuff to do with their work, so would that count as one of their?
So they have a YA class that they take.
Mhm.
And then, so,
So like, so, like, this depends on the pathway they're in, but they do assignments that are lean towards their pathway that they're in, so they're doing
Okay.
work that has to deal with their type of work or stuff in there.
so you always automatically have coursework that aligns to what they're doing because you created courses, and the kids can take that or have to take that. They have to be in it every year, so you never have to look at other coursework.
And we do the same thing.
Mhm.
It's our power. We have different assignments, they have to do like a little documentary of their
Mhm,
workplace.
Cool.
or, like a writing about.
mhm. So then they get credit for that, and then they also get credit for YA.
We gotta lump it into part of the reason they're getting credit.
Correct.
Okay. That would be the only thing that might trip you up, is if you only give credit for, if you're using that class as their coursework, and then they also have YA, they need to get credit for both. If they are only getting credit for them combined, then they have to have some other coursework that they take that counts as that's their supporting coursework.
Yeah, because I mean, technically in our course book, it's called youth apprenticeship, and that's what they're signed up for, but that's for them to be in youth apprenticeship and for the coursework that's involved with youth apprenticeship.
Yeah, then the students, what you would have to list on the paperwork would have to be a different course besides that, because it has to be a course that they're getting a credit in. And they're also supposed to get credit for YA. So if they're getting a credit for YA/that class, it would have to be another class that they take for the supporting.
I feel like
Unless
that could
you-
get iffy too, because like some districts, they give a student a whole credit for one semester being in it. Some
Mhm.
districts only give a half a credit.
Yep,
so, like,
it's up to the district.
technically then can the district just split it up so it's 2.5 credits. so
You
there's two
could.
different classes.
You could, and I would actually highly recommend that. Because that way you can list that as the coursework, and they're also getting a half credit for the YA experience. I would absolutely recommend you do that.
I have an employability skills class that the students have to take if they want to participate in work study.
And they take it at the same time that they're
Correct.
out doing YA?
Yes. So,
That's what I was thinking, like,
But they get
it's
credit for the
YA
class.
And employability skills. and they
yeah,
have to be
because I
both
call it
classes at once.
employability skills, they get a half a credit for the semester,
Okay,
and they cannot take work study. And then once they get into their work study, then I determine if they're YA eligible, if it's the right type of occupation
Okay.
under the pathway.
so they get a half credit for the employability skills class, but then they also get credit for youth apprenticeship,
And well, we're work study, yes.
whatever,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
for this, it would be for youth
Yeah,
apprenticeship.
they
And it's
both.
only a half credit, so yours would automatically have to have another half credit of class for
Right.
something anyway, but yeah, you could use that as the first half
And
credit.
that's what I usually do, and I usually do that.
Mm-hmm,
So if you rename it,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
that might be.
And then
We just, like,
separate it
renamed
too.
to Employability skills.
And they get a half credit for that, or a credit,
and that's what-
because
yeah.
they take it the whole year.
Yeah, they take it full, yeah.
Okay.
not For a semester, yeah, it's a whole year, so that's
Okay.
literally, we did that, and that could be the corresponding work
Mhm.
every
Absolutely.
pathway.
Yeah, good. Yep, and then they get the other credit for their actual YA experience. All right. As we said, the dairy grazer does have a link to the RA for dairy grazer. Environmental systems is the rest of ag, and that includes both basic water resources and advanced water resources. So what changed in ag is they removed some competencies that were inappropriate for YAs to perform. They revised several competencies. They cleaned up the criteria, identified some certificates which aligned with animals and plants, and then reviewed the bridge to registered apprenticeship. For arts, AV, and technology, they added graphic design and turned pre-press into a 1 year, and then post-press they would take in their second year. Design and pre-construction is architectural drafting and architectural planning. So they removed OSHA 10 as a required prerequisite, but you can still use it as an optional certificate. Architectural drafting is still required first. Okay, that seems like it would be, that's not under. Oh, that's just one of the constructions. Okay, so that's the architectural part of construction. They broadened the competencies where possible, and they added drawings to the second year. And then for the rest of construction, we still have all the areas we had before: carpentry, electrical, mechanical, HVAC, masonry, concrete, and plumbing, sprinkler fitting. Initially, when they redid the checklist for these, they had them as a 1 year, and we flipped out on them. As state YA coordinators, we're like, no, we need these to be 2 years. So they are 2 year. What happens in year one is that there are 15 skills, and then there are a list of 1 to 2 specialty skills that they would choose. They have to do first aid, they have to do OSHA, and then they've got their related instruction. And then in year 2, they would get scored again on those first 15 fundamental skills, but hopefully they would have improved. And then again, they complete 1 to 2 different specialty skills, or they could work in a different area, like in their junior year. If they worked in residential, then senior year, they could work in commercial, or they could switch to a different one of the trades altogether. Although that was what they kind of were setting up by changing them all to 1 year. And we're like, no, if a kid is really interested in the trades, they're going to stick with it probably for the 2 years. They're not going to specialize in electrical 1 year and then go, oh, I think I'll try plumbing my senior year. So yeah, they decided to agree with us. So for tracking options for this, again, they have to complete first aid and OSHA in year 1, and then in year 2, you have to indicate whether they're doing residential or commercial both years. And they can stick with the same one, but what happens is with the checklist, you actually have the employer score them both years that they're in the trade. So there is a year 1 rating and a year 2 rating for the same skills. And you do need to, so at the end of year 1, you need to have them check off everything where the kid is at. And then in year 2, they go back, and hopefully the kid will have improved in the competencies by the end of year 2.
I saw they changed that, and then also like on the completion forms where we sign it and the employer signed it and the student signed it.
Mhm.
You know, originally they had to like sign their name, you know, who they are, owner, whatever, and then date it. And then it went to just literally their name, our name, student's name, and now I see they switched it back to putting who they are, like owner, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So when we are having those meetings and they're filling it out more than once, now they also have where you need to put the date on it. What, you know, like for my year 2 students.
Oh, got it.
I started meeting with them already, and
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, go ahead and date it, but then do I need to have them sign it again and date it again when we do the year 2 meeting and when we do the wrap-up meeting?
I would, because it could be in year 2 that they end up with a different mentor. You never know. And so then I would have that either that same person, if it's the same person, I would have them just put a second date. Or if they end up having a new mentor, I would just, you know, on that same line, have the new mentor's name and signature and date.
Okay. And if somebody gets to like, if they're already a year 1 and they already get to 450 hours by like January, and I go through the completion paperwork with that employer, they're okay to sign it and date it like in January.
They are, then we need to submit it as
Yeah.
soon as it comes in rather than hang on to it. Because there has been some issues with that if it's signed in January, but we don't upload it until May, then the DWD, puts a big red flag on that. We did have somebody ask, I don't think it was you, that what if they got 900 hours in a year and they graduated early? Could they get a level 2 and you can't do 2 years worth of YA in a year, even if they graduate early.
I have a question
Mhm.
along that line.
Yep.
I have a level 2 in auto collision,
Mhm.
and over the summer, he still works there, but they sold the business and he has new owners,
Okay.
a new name, the whole bit.
Okay.
So do I create all new paperwork then for this year?
I would, Sandy,
Okay.
I would,
Alright.
yeah, I would have
I
them,
have the evaluations from last year of the previous owner.
okay,
And now
great.
pretty much I thought when Patrick came in and told me that it's a new owner and new name, I
Mhm.
thought I might as well just do all the paperwork over again.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
Alright.
that's safe, because then we'll just call it a second employer,
okay.
like
got
we
it.
would if a kid had 2 jobs. They added electromech. They added heavy equipment operator and operating engineer. So those are, I don't know if they're both 1-year programs, but for sure the heavy equipment operator is a 1-year with 14 skills that then bridge to registered apprenticeship. And there are some prohibited equipment, so they cannot use an aerial lift, a skid steer, a compactor, or a forklift, which for me, like, what farm doesn't have a skid steer? If it's of any size. I mean, my dad doesn't, but you know,
And the forklift is so easy to use.
that is, I could see with that because I've seen videos of horrible, like, accidents with tipping over all kinds of things with a forklift, but
Right.
skid steer, it's like any kid that works on any size of a farm is gonna know a skid steer,
Or
but
landscaping or-
yeah, any of that stuff. So
If their parents own the farm,
Mhm.
they've been doing it since they're little.
exactly. So I don't know why they still think skid steers are so dangerous, but they do. And then trenching, they can only do to 4 feet. And that does bridge to some online courses at technical college. We don't need to know about that. So first aid and OSHA are also required certificates for those. So and like I said, I'm gonna grab one of these and go all the way through it, so that way everybody sees it. But I've got 2 different spots. If you click on, when I send you the slide deck, if you click on the bottom, it will send you to the DWD checklist, and they do have all of the new checklists from both last year and this year in Word form and in PDF, so you can choose which you want to do. Otherwise, I also have the form that I created. And that was just so that I could keep track of like what they updated when. So starting with the right-hand column was all the stuff that they updated last year. And it also at the top tells you when you're required to start using them. So finance, some of the health science. Go down. They're going to redo the rest of the health science this year. Go down. There we go. Hospitality, lodging, and tourism, which is definitely something we need to talk about because of the major changes they made to that. Information technology, which they added some things to last year, and then manufacturing, which they made updates to last year. Those you are required to start using next year. If you've got juniors that are signing up in any of those areas, they're going to use the checklist this year. And the big reason for that is the hospitality, lodging, and tourism. There is no longer an option for students to get a level 2 in any area of hospitality. They can't do foods for 2 years. It doesn't exist. So if you sign juniors up this year as food and beverage service as a level 2, it doesn't exist next year as a senior. So any of your kids that are out working at McDonald's or Dairy Queen or Hardee's as juniors can work in food and beverage services this year. And then you're going to need to really think about what to do next year, because if it's an option, depending on where they're employed, the only 2 other pathways in hospitality are lodging. So it has to be like actual, there would have to be rooms at wherever it is they work, or meetings and events planning. And it really is like someplace that regularly holds meetings and events. If that's not the case, then, and they're interested in YA for their senior year, I'm not exactly sure.
So they can do, like, they can work at a restaurant for level 1.
For 1 year.
And then move to
Something else.
hotel, meetings, that type of thing,
Yep.
for level 2.
No, it would be another level 1. So there is no level 2 that exists in hospitality anymore. The suggestion from last Wednesday, which I thought was, I think it was like, no, it was at the CESA 8 YA meeting, was if they had a hospitality leadership, that would be what students would go into for level 2, because a lot of kids, after they have worked in any of these areas for 1 year, they're then training the newbies in their second year. And so if they had a hospitality leadership where they would be the trainers of the new people, I thought that was brilliant. So, yeah, so.
Especially when we have, like, South that's a hospitality, or, it's not like there's not a career path for college, for that.
Yeah.
So,
I think 2 things. The DWD looked at, again, high wage, high need. And even though this is a huge need up here, it's not high wage. And the other is they looked at the skills that a student has to accomplish by the end of their first year with foods. And they said there's nowhere for them to go. Like, it doesn't get harder than that. So that's why they cut it back to a 1 year, because they said they're not learning anything that second year. They're just redoing what they did before. So I think that if we could argue a hospitality leadership would be the training piece, and that would be what they're doing in year 2, I could definitely see that as an option. So that's something I'm going to float out there. We'll see what happens. But as you're signing students up this year, juniors, seniors, go for it. They're only going to be level 1 anyway. But your juniors, it's going to be really important that really in all of these areas, but that's going to be the biggie, is to make sure that they are listed as level 1s. For finance, any of the finance areas, well, no. If they're doing accounting or banking, they can be level 2s. Insurance apparently is just a 1 year. Health science. Nursing assistant is a level 2, but I know we just had somebody who signed up for medical office pathway. Let me click into that
I had one.
and see, did you think that that was a 2-year one when they signed up, or did you think that that was a 1 year? It's a 1 year. They have changed it. Okay. Yeah, because, and again, that's with the new checklist, but if they're junior, then I'm sure, yeah, they've made a lot of changes. So if she's a senior, it wouldn't make any difference, but if she's a junior signing up, then yeah, then we need to do a level 1, because a level 2 medical office isn't going to exist. So as long as I'm on medical office, I might as well use that to go through the checklist. So let me make sure I'm clicked in the document on both of them and we can see. So the first page, yeah, like I said, every single pathway now has its own specific OJL. So this is what this is. You've got the competencies. As we were saying before, now an employer can look at those 10 and say, well, there's 9 that absolutely the student does. There's a 10th, one of these that they really aren't going to have the opportunity to do, but there's a different competency that they're going to do instead, and you can substitute that. They've got the registered apprenticeship information so that students know that that's an opportunity once they graduate. Some post-secondary pathways that would align with this particular pathway. Then there's your same.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is where I'm running into a problem.
Okay.
I want to print this without that click or tap here to enter text. And I had emailed Allison and she gave me the directions how to do it and it still wouldn't do it. And I'm so confused.
If you go to the PDF, does that show up? Because these are the Word documents
Yeah, I've got it.
that I have linked. Even the
Yeah,
PDF has it?
either one.
Yeah, I had to literally make a copy of the document with Google. Then I had to go through and delete everything that where it's like click or tab. Then I had to resave it as a template for future uses. Because yeah, otherwise when it prints, it says it in every line.
Oh,
And
okay.
also the other big problem is where it goes to coursework part.
Mhm.
The background of that is always black.
Oh,
When you print it, you can't read what says for which order you're supposed to put it in. So I've
Okay.
also found those ones and I put the background of that table to be
so clear.
white, clear, whatever. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I tried to do what you had said, saved the copy, deleted all that, then saved it again. And then the next time I brought it up, they were still there. And it was like, what the heck?
Ah,
So I'll go back and I'm gonna try it again.
okay.
Yeah, I ended up just creating like a YA folder and then I just put like registrate or I put completion template packets and then I labeled each one for the pathway.
Okay.
And then I just use that.
If you have them as Google Docs, would you be willing to share? Because then I can put them in my Google folders and
only
then
have
they'd
like
be
the-
there.
Done.
And I might have some of them done too. So I'll check what I have, and if you send me what you have,
I still got the old hospitality saved
okay,
because I have one more year with that.
with your
And
seniors,
I
yes.
tried to do the carpentry because I have
Mhm.
2 this year in
Okay.
carpentry.
I might have that one.
And that's when I tried.
I might have that one.
And. I
But
couldn't.
like this, well, yeah, you gave your checklist to your folks already, correct? Which is why you're like,
I did not.
Oh, okay.
They're on my,
okay, because I might have that for construction then.
that would be
I'll have to
awesome.
check. I will check. So for some reason, the boxes aren't showing up on the screen, but there are boxes in front of the requirements. Please, please, please make sure that if there's a box, it gets checked. Anything is not checked, we get it bounced back by the DWD and they won't accept it. So you have to check that they completed the competency checklist. You have to check that they completed the employability skills. You need to check that their related instruction is listed. You need to check that they got 450 hours. You need to record their actual hours and the company name and the telephone number. And they're just multiple boxes because some kids work for more than one person. The career preparation piece, like we said, it's no longer an option and it has boxes in front of all of this stuff. I don't know why it's not showing up on here.
Yesterday and today when I pulled it up at school too, they're not showing.
The
up.
boxes, yeah, they're on there. They're just not
I
showing
can
up.
check them.
So this is what we went over before, that students need to do one of the 3 things, whether it is that they're enrolled in a pathway because they're taking the classes and they're in the CTSO and they're in YA. So there you go. They're doing 3 of the competencies. They're enrolled in the pathway. Or they are completing one of these certificates while they're in their YA experience. So for juniors especially, for a lot of these, it would be because it's required that the juniors would have to do them. Or they have one dual enrollment class that goes along with their pathway for the year. And so that's going to count, but they do have to do one of them. Then for signatures, they did get rid of event, or last year they had where even the instructor had to sign. They got rid of that, thank goodness, because that would be a nightmare. So now the employer does need to sign. They need to, you need to type it in. You need to type in the business. You need to type in the date sign. So here is where if you've got a second employer or like the company, well, yours, the whole company changed their name, so we're gonna need new paperwork. But if you have like a year 1 and a year 2 for construction, and it ends up to be a different mentor the second year, then they can just sign on the right-hand side.
Okay.
And then you as the school-based coordinator, and then the kid. Did they ever have to sign the paperwork before?
Not original.
I didn't think so. That's new. So that now the kid has to sign. So make sure you get that before your seniors graduate.
Yeah.
Which is, that's why I have 3 physical meetings a year, which is what the DWD says you're supposed to do. So I'm just saying that because now I've said it. But if you're like in constant contact with these employees and you're like emailing them every week, and that adds up to 3 meetings a year, you do you. But the DWD says we have 3 meetings. In the last meeting that I have with them, that's where like I gather all the signatures. So I actually sit down with the employer and the kid. We go through the whole checklist. It takes 15 minutes. It's not a lot of time, although I know that's time out of your day. But then I get the mentor signatures on everything I need. I get the kids' signature. So everything, before I walk out of the office, I have everything. Then the employability skills are, I think, what they called core competencies before, but they're the same thing. Now, instead of, it used to just have, 1, develop positive work relationship, 2, communicates effectively. And then there was a whole separate document that if you had a question about what any of these meant, you had to go to that other curriculum document, and it said, oh, 1 means this, and it had a list. They just combined it together, which I think is really nice, because that way, if an employer ever has a question about what you mean by any of these numbers, they can see it right there. This is what we mean. It doesn't mean that a kid has to do everything that's listed under there. It's just examples, but it's nice for them, especially new employers, to see. So by the end of the year, they have to be at least a 2 for everything. Otherwise, they're not going to get their youth apprentice certificate. So it's important for employers to know that. And that also makes that end of the year conversation go really, really fast, because if you say the student needs to get at least a 2 on everything in order to get their certificate, there's not an employer who's not going to say, oh, give them a 2 for that, give them a 2 for that. So it makes it go really fast. So we've got all the core skills, or those employability skills, at the top. And then we get into the actual competencies for this particular pathway. That too, they now have the description right underneath it. Doesn't mean that the kid has to have done everything in that description, but it gives you an idea. And then what a 1, a 2, and a 3 stands for. So it's important for employers to know that. Again, if there is one of these that, a student just does not have the opportunity to do, you can put NA next to that. But then here where it says substitute competency, you need to actually list what the new thing is that you had the kid do, and then score them on it. Related instruction now has to be reported. It does say that it needs to be 1 credit of high school or 3 college credits for the year. It doesn't say it has to be a half credit each semester. So if they take a 1 credit class at the beginning of the year, that's your employability skills, except yours is just a half. But if they have their credit that they get done with, say they take both classes for semester, they're done. So as long as they have a credit during the year, they're good. But we do now have to record them on the sheet.
I'm gonna send you the carpentry one.
Okay.
Oh,
Awesome.
but the other ones I'm gonna have to redo because they changed where you sign.
Because they had instructor
Yeah.
in them, and now they got rid of them.
Yep.
Yep.
Have it dated, so those ones aren't good on
Okay.
my end, so I'll redo those ones. So here's carpentry.
Awesome. The post-completion survey now is right part of the on-the-job learning guide, so you will never forget it because it is right there. This is the one that we have to physically upload the copy of this at the end of the year. So it's really, really important to check everything that applies in that top box. So if the kid is going to be employed at all after they have graduated, you need to check things in that top box. Doesn't have to be with this employer, but if they're going to have a job in if they're going to have a job after they have graduated, it needs to get checked either full-time or part-time. And then if it is related to their YA programming, if it's with their same employer, then yep, you check that first box because it is related to their YA program training. It's with the same employer. And it is also with the same employer. So you'd actually check both of those top boxes, the first two boxes. If they are going to continue working for the summer, but then they're going off to school, you would check that it's seasonal or intermittent. If they are rolling into an internship, there's a box for that. If they are going into the military, but they're, if they go into the military, they're going to be employed, you would check that. If they're going to be employed with that employer seasonally, but they're also doing post-secondary education, you would check 4 boxes. First 3, and then also entering post-secondary education. If they're rolling this into a registered apprenticeship, the DWD will love us, so check that. And if they're going to be part-time and it's because of some kind of health or personal issue that they can't be full-time, there's a box for that. We absolutely need to know what their new wage is when they start as regular employees. So the day after YA is done and the employer has signed off on this and the kid is continuing to work, what are they making? Could be the same thing. Maybe they haven't gotten a raise the entire year, but if they have a different wage, you need to record that. And then their new start date can be the day after YA is done. You don't have to worry about position title or industry sector. And then if the student is going to be employed, but somewhere besides where they had done their YA, you need to have the employer's name, the street address, city, county, state, and zip of the new employer. So again, one of the really important reasons to connect with the kid before they leave you is to make sure you know where they're going. I actually had one employer that I met with last year because the local coordinator didn't have time or left their position. And the kid had moved on to a new job and the old employer actually knew where he had gone and called the new employer and got all the information for me. I'm like, that was so nice. I would not have known where to go. If they're not going to be employed, that's the only time that you have to look at the bottom box. So if they're not going to be employed after YA, it is either because they don't want to work, or they applied but they weren't interviewed, or they were interviewed but they didn't get offered the job, or they were offered the job but they decided not to accept. And then on the right-hand side, is it because they're going into post-secondary education? So, maybe a student didn't apply because they're going off to college. Then you check the top box on each side. Or the student was unable to find an entry-level position to apply for. They had a change in career interest or plans. They had health, personal issues. And we had some kids last year that finished up their YA and they said because of COVID, they and their parents were not comfortable with them working. And so we just checked that box. And then the mentor does need to sign and date along with the mentor name and company name. And then that whole on the job learning guide gets sent off to Jean. And then we go into the website and do what we need to do. I do also want to go into on my chart that I created at the top. Now, where did it go?
I already used that slideshow that you were showing.
I'm got to send it to you.
Oh,
I will send it. Yeah, I should have had a link at the beginning and didn't think of it, but I will send it. At the first 2 spots on each one, the very first one is the overview document. And so I want to check on, oh shoot, not for health. I don't want to do the health one because that's the old one yet. Because they aren't done with health. Let me go back. Do one that is, I'll do finance. Because that one's up to date. That one's new. So the very, if you click on the title, it will take you to the overview. So what the overview is going to give you is a list of all the pathways in that particular area. So this one is accounting, banking, and insurance. But then if you keep scrolling down, no, where is it? I thought that was where we found the safety stuff. Oh, I suppose there is no safety. There is no safety stuff for finance. You can't do anything that's not safe when you're in finance. Let me not use finance as an example. Maybe manufacturing. That is true. Let's go to manufacturing. That's going to have some safety stuff. Oh, hilarious. Okay. There we go. So if you then scroll down past the pathways for that particular document, come on, go down. It will take you to employment of minors consideration. So this is going to tell you what students are allowed to and not allowed to do as student learners, which may be different from regular student employees. So it gives you all of the things that they can and can't do. So if there's an area, unlike finance, that has any safety precautions to it, you're going to find it on that overview. And you get to that just by clicking on the title. And then the other thing that is right under that for each area is that related instruction document. So this is where the DWD is going to say, you know, first and foremost, if there is an opportunity for students to get dual credit, that's the kinds of, or college credit, that's what we want students to have the opportunity to get. As it says, students need to get 1 high school credit per year or 3 college credits per year, but it doesn't have to be half per semester. So that's helpful. And then talks about RA again and college transcripts. And then it goes through a whole, you know, thing that, you know, are students going to be able to go into a registered apprenticeship? If not, then, you know, can they get into a college program? If not, can they get into a dual credit program? If not, can they get into some kind of course that is part of your Carl Perkins? If not, can they at least get into some high school class that goes along with it? And then they give some suggestions for some of the types of courses, and this must be, yeah, hospitality, that would be good for food and beverage, for lodging, for meetings. So they give you an idea of the types of coursework that they would like to see students take as part of youth apprenticeship. But again, we know the reality of working in small districts that don't have all the classes that some other districts might have. So we do what we can. Oh no, where did my slideshow go? Gotta find my slide again. 68. All right. So as the program transition says at the top, all of the, oh, I forgot to look at the middle column. So that was what was updated last year. And then this year, did I close it already? On this one, I did. Go back. For this year, they updated, as we saw, the architecture and construction. So I've got those linked. The AV and technology. Come on. Oh, and ag, food, and natural resources. So the ones they are working on are all the marketing ones, the STEM, and transportation, distribution, and logistics. So the plan is that they are working right now on the transportation, and then there were 3 health areas that hadn't been done yet. So they're working on those. And then STEM, they're working on from November through February, and then marketing, they'll finish up January through March. So by next summer, for sure, they should have everything that is now existing updated. All of the forms that are in those first 2 columns that we looked at are absolutely required for next year. So anything that's in the right hand in the middle column, we are not optional for the new forms next year. We have to use them. For juniors this year, you want to use the new forms because it would be a nightmare to try to switch forms with your employers and your students halfway through if they're level 2s. And some of those level 2s, like we said, are disappearing. So with your juniors, please, if it's an area that has already been updated, please use the updated forms. With your seniors, you go with whatever you'd like. So the modernization goals, we looked at those at the beginning. So the biggest immediate changes are that all juniors need to be using the new checklists for this year. There is no level 2 for hospitality, which we talked about already. The other area that I wanted to talk about was marketing, because I've gotten several applications that have come in, and it has students listed as working in professional sales. And I just want to put the checklist up there for professional sales and show you why, if students are working at Walmart, they are not doing the pathway for professional sales. There's no way. So instead, you may need to switch the pathway that your students are in. Because if we go down to the competencies for professional sales, come on. Core skills, there we go. It is pretty immediately evident that they need to be selling a particular product if it is professional sales. And I think there was one that came in that a student was working someplace, I don't know if it was a heating and cooling place. It was someplace, but they were doing marketing. And I was like, oh, maybe they're doing some of these things. But if it's professional sales, they're doing things like pre-sale activities. They are getting product knowledge so that they can communicate about the product features to their customers. They are employing sales processes and techniques to enhance customer relationships. They're processing the sale and collecting payment, and then conducting post-sale follow-ups. They're not doing that if they're working for Walmart. So if you've got a kid that is doing marketing because they're working at any kind of a store that is not like actual sale of a product, that's going to mean like pre-sales, post-sales support for that particular purchaser, they're doing merchandising unit, because then they're doing things like employing product mix strategies, which means front facing the products. They're planning product service management activities. I don't know, they're really not doing that either, but at least it's closer. Assisting to develop merchandising plans or budgets. Oh, even that is really pushing it. But that's usually
Figure out which one.
exactly. And that's another, it's really, yeah, because all of the rest of this stuff, marketing management, very upper level. Marketing research, I can't imagine a company that would have a kid doing marketing research. Marketing communications, if you've got a kid that is doing like all of their socials for a company, you might be doing marketing communications.
Real estate.
Real estate might be one of the things that you could do professional sales. If they're actually like working with the customers, that could be one.
And that's the thing, with any of that stuff, nobody does just that little group. They're doing probably 2 or 3 of every single one of those things.
Yeah.
And so that's what throws that off, because even Walmart specifically trains people in the electronics department. And that is sales. I mean, that is, they have to do that knowledge or, or.
So it could be that a student has that.
Talk about whatever their cell phone service is. So that does fit within there.
Right.
Now, they're maybe not doing a lot of the post follow-up, that's corporate level, but, I mean, they're doing a lot of that if they're working in electronics.
Yeah, if they're in a particular department, that could be the case.
Right.
If they're just general, like working the register, stocking shelves, and it might be the case, this is one of the ones that they're going to be redoing. I don't know what's going to happen with this. It could end up that they end up condensing some of these and getting rid of some of them. But there's not a guarantee that this is going to fit with a Walmart kid anymore.
None of those make sense.
So
So-
the marketing one, you have to pick one of those boxes.
Yep. One of those pathways. Yep.
That's not what marketing is about, though.
Well, it's almost like they're
Says a
gearing
marketing
it towards
teacher.
upper level, when really all these kids should be entry level.
Mhm.
Some of the stuff you're
Yeah.
just not gonna do when you start working for a company.
Yeah.
You're gonna work up to those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not getting specialized until you have to be really into your career before you're specialized.
Yeah.
in that.
What high school student is going to do market research for a company?
Actually,
Mine.
we
Do
have
you?
marketing research, because some of our small businesses in town,
Mhm.
they'll do their surveys in the summer, or they'll gather,
Okay.
some of their
Mhm.
information. We don't do like large scale,
Mhm.
obviously, but, marketing research includes price comparisons
Mhm.
and, that type of stuff. So
Yep.
they get a little of it,
Mhm.
just not a lot. This is meant to be introductory.
It is. So
So-
because this is one of the ones that they are like redoing right now, I think it would be great for the DWD to hear from some of the people who are in the field saying, hey, because you're redoing marketing, let me tell you, this is what's really happening with marketing in my area and what I'd love to see happen.
I think Lakewood should do that.
I think you all should do that. If any of you have kids that are working in marketing, you should all do that. But for sure, I know that there were a couple that came through that said professional sales, and they're working at Walmart, and we're going to need to change those because yeah, I know for sure that they're not. All right. So one of the things that I created last year was a spreadsheet for each district to keep track of your students and your hours. And as we've got, and I've got to have to do this on both ends here. I'm trying to keep it updated, but we hadn't added new things for a while. So that's not the right, this one. So now I'm trying to get caught up with who has what kids where. But we need to be able to know like where your students are and how many hours they have and all that kind of stuff. So there we go. Get into the right folder here. I will share with you, if you were here last year, you already have access to this. So it's in a folder called districts, and then you should have a link to your particular district's document. I will just pick somebody who isn't here. So it's this CESA 9YA student doc that you'll get. And I was going to create like one big one with just tabs on the bottom for all of the districts. And then we decided that probably wasn't a good idea because of thank you. It was going to come to me, but I'm working two screens here. And so it was going to take a while for my brain to catch up. Yes, and that was a really, really good idea. So everybody's got a checklist, and there is a spot there for if you've got students that want shirts. I gave everybody now samples of the shirts. We've got 3 different styles and sizes from small to like 2X, I think. So if you've got students that want shirts, let me know. We've got enough for one for each kid. But we have their name, whether they're level 1 or 2, their grade, which program they're in, which pathway they're in, what business they are with, who their mentor is, and their mentor's contact information. The form also asks for the contact phone number, and that is something that we have to put into the YOTA system. So somebody has a student with a really, really unusual first name that we need a phone number. Let me see here. I saw it. Oh, Cervantes? Graham. So we need a phone number for the mentor. And you can just let Jean know what it is and she can write it on the form. Okay, so where am I at? Here we go. And then you can check off, as I would love it if you would help me keep these updated, because it's kind of difficult for me to go through forms after they're in, but that's what I've been doing. So if they've got their ETA and their YA form applications in, you can check those off. Here's what I need from you is for you to go in and list what is the related coursework. And it doesn't have to be semester 1, semester 2. If it's a full year, that's fine. If it's 2 classes in the first semester, that's fine. But I do need to know what they're taking. And then whatever is equivalent to having 3 meetings a year with the mentor, please just put dates in there of when you contacted them. When you gave them the checklist at the beginning, and then when you caught up with them in January so that you can give this kid a grade, and when you caught up with them again at the end of the year to give them a grade again. We need to be able to assure the DWD that yes, our mentors are out there talking to our employers and our students. So we need those checked. And then if it's your seniors, at the end of their experience, their skills checklists and their post-completion surveys would get filled in. And then the other thing is to keep track of your hours. So whatever mechanism you have set up for students submitting their hours to you on a regular basis, we need to know if they were working over the summer. They can count up to 200 of their hours during the summer. And then each month, or if you do several months at a time, that's fine too, but we do need hours recorded, and then it'll automatically add them up at the end so that we can see that they're at 450. So that's going to be part of what we ask you to do for your claim this year. We've got 3 claim times, December, March, and June. So as we get your claims in, we're also going to be looking at your spreadsheet. And so we need to know, your semester 1 coursework and your first meeting date and your hours through December. And then I'll sign off on your claim for December. Same thing for March, and then the same thing for June. If a kid's not done yet in June, we're still going to make sure you get your funds. But then, whenever they do finish during the summer, and you get all the paperwork signed off, then you just go back into the form and make sure that their final hours are in there and you check off the paperwork. But I'm not trying to make more paperwork for you or have something that I have to check, but the DWD is just coming down on a lot of stuff. And so I want to make sure that if they're saying this is what our requirement is, that we've got paperwork that says, yep, that's exactly what we're doing.
But I gotta ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I heard just the tail end of that. If a kid's working at Home Depot
Yes,
and it's marketing,
yes,
it's not professional sales,
Nope.
it's merchandising.
it's that, is that the one that we,
I'm just working on one right now, so I'm gonna change
Yep.
that.
yes, it's merchandising unit.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
As long as you're in here, do you have anything to say about end of year? Because they did extend it to the end of October.
Right.
I don't know if they're going to go back to the end of September next year, but that's when it always has been.
Yeah.
So any of your seniors or juniors that are done, that aren't doing it again this year, we need their skills checklist. And then the seniors, we need that post-program completion survey, not the juniors, but the seniors we do.
No,
So-
it's been going pretty good.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
when we have a question, we ask, and they've been good about getting back to us, so
Awesome.
I think it's good.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep, I know we got a lot this spring, and that is so helpful because if we can get, as soon as the kids get their 450 or their 900 hours, get them sent in, then you're done. If you
Yeah.
can get that, I know Allison sent a ton of stuff because she was going to be leaving for the baby. So yeah, then we just get everything uploaded and into the DWD, and it makes it so much nicer this time of year that we're not having to process all of that paperwork.
Yeah.
In
and
September.
Hillary always says, don't wait until the end of the year to spend your money.
Yes, we're just getting to the money part.
Yep, okay, thank you.
So also you should have gotten from Hillary or Hannah a form with your information for your funding. So that should be, I think, in a claim folder. So I believe everybody got links to that. So there are 3 times during the year that you can make those claims: December, March, and June. And one of the things, like she said, that Hillary and Hannah always say is do not wait until the last minute. Last year, we had $8,000 we had to quick spend, which is why we got a ton of shirts sitting in the other room. So use your money. We had a really, really great question. I think, Sandy, was it from you? That you already have more
Yeah, I
students than
had
you signed
put-
up for?
I had to put 6 down, he had me down for 7.
Yep.
But I actually have 9.
Awesome. So what I will say is that this is preliminary numbers, but they can change. So if it ends up that you've got 9 and say Jess in Crandon ends up with 6. So we've got 2 extra ones. We can, by the end of the year, make that switch. We've got the money and we want to make sure that it gets spent. So we can absolutely make switches from one district to another, because you're only going to get, once you get your guaranteed stipend, then it's based on the number of students that you get signed up. So
So
if
should I estimate 9 then and spend 9?
so, if you've got 9 students, then
Even though you have 7 on my chart.
for now, until the third time that you're asking for money, I would say only ask for the 7 because that's all we can guarantee.
Okay,
If it ends up by, we'll know by the end of January, beginning of February,
perfect.
what numbers are. So even by the March one, we'll know if we need to shift numbers around,
Okay.
but we have funding absolutely for 120 kids, however that lays out.
Okay,
Like, I should have been 55, but it says 54.
I know, because we also get dinged if we overestimate. And so we had more than that for all of our districts. I think we had like 130 that everybody estimated, and we actually wrote our grant last year for 120 and only had 104 that signed up, and we will only have completions of like 94. So the further apart those two numbers are, the more that we get docked on our funding. So we just cut 10 off the top.
We're definitely gonna have more than 35.
Okay.
That will help out possibly.
Okay. I will say, when you are spending your funds, the first priority is always the kids. So if they need anything, if you've got kids that are out working in healthcare and they need scrubs, you can use funding for that. If they need steel-toed shoes, if they need, if they're working in auto repair and they need a toolbox with tools, you can purchase that. I think it's $250 a kid or something like that, that we can specifically spend just on the student. And then the second priority would be your time. And please keep track of your hours that you're putting in. I think we have a time tracker in there. I will make sure that that's also in your folder that has your student spreadsheet, because any of your time that you're spending on paperwork, on connecting with employers, your sub while you're here today, any of that stuff can get paid for by the grant. So we don't want to have $8,000 at the end, sitting in June that we have to buy t-shirts. We would much rather have you guys have the money. So whatever you.
I use it for the OSHA training and the first aid training.
Yep, absolutely. I did email Mark, and thank you for reminding me about that, because NTC has been paying, was it NTC or Nicolay? That has been paying for his time.
March with Nicolay.
Nicolay has been paying for Mark's time, and that was through a grant, and it was ending last year. So he said if he did it this year, we had only had to pay for the student certificates, and that was it, which was like next to nothing. So-
used it last year, I had a student plumbing, he did the online OSHA and the online first aid. I still have the online first aid website, but I lost the OSHA website. Does anybody? have
Oh,
it?
that's right. And you were asking about that. Does anybody have a good website for OSHA?
I completely forgot what company it was that I went to.
You know, I'm not
It was
sure, but I,
$39.95.
Okay.
And, well, I mean, maybe I could have
But
my,
check-
we
check
used
the-
our credit card, school credit.
Oh,
card,
yeah,
business
so maybe you've got it on
manager, I'll
that.
find it.
but check with Mark
Okay,
at Nicolay, because they had a whole bunch of companies that, during COVID that they were, I know they were
Working
working on
with?
doing their kind of own
okay,
online thing. I believe.
okay,
So, just reach out to him
all right.
and,
You know, Mark's on it.
England, and
England.
it's
Yeah.
England@nicolaycollege.edu.
Okay,
Otherwise, career safe always have a lot of,
that's what it was.
that's probably what you use.
Yep,
Mhm.
career
It'd be a lot
safe,
cheaper too.
Yeah.
yep, career safe. Thank you.
But if we've got some employers that are running OSHA trainings and are willing to have our students be a part of it at no cost, that would really be fantastic. I know with my construction kids, the employers pay for that, for the kids to do it. So it's not something that we even need to do. But I did email Mark for information to see if they got another grant, if he is able to provide the training. So I haven't heard back from him, but as soon as I do, I will let you all know.
Okay,
Because I know that Jess had him come in to Crandon to do that. So as soon as I hear anything from him, Jess, I'll send the information.
Sounds good. Another thing I just want to point out too with funding or how to use it is, so we have a couple of kids that are doing like Start College Now that tie into it. So basically using YA funds to cover that.
Yep, absolutely. YA funds can be used for, yeah. In fact, I think that's probably the first thing the DWD would love you to use it for, because they want kids to have that college credit. So if you use that funding for kids to get that credit, that is great. So I'll make sure that everybody gets access to that student spreadsheet. Let me go to my chart and make sure that I have the new information in it for folks, because I want to make sure that's all up to date. So I know Jess, we still have at Crandon, and Larry's still there. Elko now is Scott Wilson's. Lakeland Union.
Did you change mine to Sandy?
I can change yours to Sandy.
Sandra's my mother.
There you go.
Sandra, and that's it.
Okay,
I
so
love you, Sandra.
so Lakeland Union is,
Stephanie, it's still Stephanie.
It's still
my
Stephanie,
name, But
okay.
you can add my name to it if you want.
yes.
Or, okay, so it's still,
And it's-
yeah, so Stephanie Hartline, she doesn't go by Wolf anymore. And then,
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Let me change that first. Whoops. Okay, and then it's.
and then G-A-M-I, Jamie. It's like Annie Miller.
Miller, it popped up already. Oh, now why does it do that? I hate PCs.
And some of you have worked.
Okay, and I've got your email, so I'll include it there. And is Jim Ellis still your superintendent
Where?
at Lakeland Union?
He's grade school. He's an elementary.
Oh, okay. Who is your superintendent?
Our superintendent right now is, we have substitute one, Broadway, left, so we have,
Oh.
Dr. Claire Martin.
Clara or Claire?
Claire.
Martin? Okay. Because they're the ones I think that have to sign at the end of the year on the form. Jason is Leona. Jason, are you also, oh, Jason popped off. But he does now have a new middle school, high school counselor that took his place. So I'll have to see if she is going to have any connection with YA. Mercer is Sandy, and still Sherry Kopka is your
Yes.
soup. Northland Pines is Tim, and Sade, right? She also is, so I'll put her. And Scott Foster is still your soup?
Yep.
All right, and then Phelps is Jason, Ryan Lander,
Lexi Allen.
so Amy is not going to be doing it anymore? Okay, so you are the new. Yes. I don't even know how guidance got put on there.
That's okay.
Usually I go with whatever the title says on the school district website.
If you just change the front part, it's A-L-L-E-N.
Okay. Oh, isn't it? Yeah, it says ALLEN. Oh, email I don't have on here yet. Got it.
A-L-E.
And ALE at k12.wi.us. Oh, come on. And Kelly Jacoby. Eric. I even met Eric. Ryan's in Three Lakes, because I sat down with him while I was on vacation, and then Allison. And should I keep Ryan on here for YA? I had him as a contact as well, but should I just have you, or?
Employers and students contact me, I would have to ask.
Okay. Is he your building principal?
No, we have two high school principals.
Okay.
But he's the CESA coordinator.
Oh, that's what he is. Okay. Because I know he wanted to know about like anything ACP last year. And then is Terry Reynolds your soup yet? No.
It's Joseph.
Yes. It's a good Irish name. All righty. That is helpful. Okay, let's see, anything else? I know when Marla was here, she always covered the CT incentive grant. I am not the LVEC, so I know nothing about the CTE incentive grant, except that it's there. And that any of your students that get YA certification, they qualify for your CTE incentive grant money. That is coming up due next week. There, I linked a frequently asked questions document just in case you need to know about that, but it brings in between $500 and $1,000 per kid. So apply. Because
And I
why
think
not?
that's one that, didn't she mention last week that even if some of your kids have like fire safety, like if they're on the volunteer fire department, so
Mhm.
if they have like, you know, fire certificates, that kind of stuff.
And in fact, the fire certificates are a little bit different because the kid actually gets money. The other CT incentive grants, it's money that comes to the district, but the fire ones, the kid actually gets money because you have to submit the kid's name and address for them to get a check. So yeah, if you've got kids that are, and I'm sure that's in
But
here.
they can
somewhere.
earn it anytime during their high school career, but it has to be when they graduate. Correct?
Right.
Yes.
To claim when graduating.
Yep.
Okay, so
So keep track of all that
this
stuff.
year's seniors, we're submitting by the 30th.
Right, so if
Kids who are
they
graduating
did
in May.
YA as juniors last year and they got like their OSHA certification then,
Okay.
and then they are finishing up and get their YA certificate, you can only get paid once per kid.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how many certificates they have, but still you can record them. So,
Alright,
yep.
we got 800, I think it's 800 per student.
So due next week are the students from last.
From May that graduated.
Okay.
Oh,
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
last year.
Yes.
Yeah, 21 graduates.
Yes, 21
Oh,
graduates.
okay, not
Yep.
22 graduates.
Right.
Oh, yeah, so it's
Yep.
gonna be like a goose chase.
And then the money comes in June.
Next year, yeah, it
next
takes,
year to your
it takes a
school.
while. But there are no restrictions on how your district spends that money. It is just to support your CTE program. So it's up to your district. And I'm sure different districts have different ways that they divvy that money up, but it's to support any of your CTE programs.
Well, and something, I don't know if they had said this, is with, so it's your 21 graduates, but if they were a YA as juniors, don't forget them, claim them.
Yes, that's a good point, Jess. So if you had juniors that didn't do YA senior year, but got their certificate junior year, make sure you include them once they graduate. So if they were juniors 2 years ago, got a YA certificate, didn't do YA their senior year, but they still have those certificates, you can still count them because they have a certificate and they graduated, they just got the certificate while they're juniors. That was a great point, Jess.
And Marla would have a record of who was submitted from each school last year, right?
You can access-
Last year, we just had to put their names in, so you don't need like,
Yeah, you really don't need anything except their name because the
Don't need a
DWD
their
is the one
certificate.
that they actually connect with the DPI and assure
And
that you
pathway.
have.
Yeah.
And program and pathway, main program pathway for YA students.
yeah.
But the actual certificate, you don't have to upload or anything.
CNA, you like your registry number, if they have like firefighter one, you would copy of their certificate.
Okay.
Or anything given to the DPI copy of the certificate.
Thank you, because yeah, I know nothing about this, so. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns about anything? I'd like to hear that. I mean, there's a lot with everything that the DWD is doing with the new checklists and things. So I'm really appreciative of you guys being here because it's so much easier to just go through it with everybody at once and have everybody know what's happening. So I will go through now that I've got updated contact information for everybody. I'll make sure that you have a link to your spreadsheet. And I'll try as much as I can to go through the paperwork that you've submitted and add students in. But if I miss students on your spreadsheet, please add them. I will not feel bad if you go in and put things in too. That would be really helpful. And then it just gives us both a spot to go to as students are signing up for classes and you're gathering information on hours. So that just makes it a lot easier as Jean and I do our work. And like I said before, if you've got new employers that are just getting into YA and you don't have time to do a training, I think it's like a half-hour video that I put together, but it really kind of leads them through what a checklist looks like and, you know, the kinds of personality you should have as being a mentor and, you know, working with students and how that might be different from working with your regular employees and just things like that that are good for them to know. So we will have a meeting again usually it's April to wrap up things, but we'll definitely send information out to you as we're coming up on the December date for making your first claim and your March date for making your second claim. And by the time that second claim is in March, we'll know if we need to do any shifting around of numbers.
Okay.
So then if we have extra funding for any of you, we can let you know that by the March time.
Who should I email for sizes for the kids' t-shirts? I
Me.
email you?
You can
Okay.
let me know. If you, well, actually, like if you're going to be coming to pick them up anytime soon, I'm going to be gone and I don't know when the next time is I'll be here. So Jean is always here and the t-shirts are right in the back. In fact, I'll just walk all of you back there and show you kind of where everything is.
Okay.
So if you know what you need, I have no problem with you guys coming in, grabbing what you want. And it's first come, first serve on sizes. So do you have anything, Jess?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then I'm going to stop the
Thanks.
recording. But yep, great to see you.
Enjoy your trip.